Today's April 25th, 2023. Today, I lost my 100K FTMO challenge. I'm eating a bagel, by the way. And I thought to myself, what happened was I had 5,000 shares, 1,000 of Amazon, 4,000 of 4,000 of Apple, and these stocks just spiked down when I bought it, and so it just essentially took me out of the max loss, not the daily loss, the max loss. So that's that. So I thought to myself, at work, I'm thinking, something hit me. It says, okay, I need to make a video about how I should trade. And trading is like writing a software, like creating an algorithm to use in a program. That requires intense thinking and strategizing and planning. I'm eating a couple of noodles. It's cheap at Costco. I get a box of them. Then I thought, as I sat down here, actually as I was driving here, I thought to myself, now, what is the transitional point between gambling and becoming a professional? I was about to make this video and I realized something. What I realized is that I've reviewed a couple of videos where professionals talk about being the house or are you the player kind of thing. So it occurred to me that being the house means that I have full control over the outcome of what happens, because I have a statistical advantage. As I trade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to 1,000, then if I have a statistical advantage, then after those trades, then I will be ahead. That is being the house. But if I randomly, willy-nilly trade, then essentially it's gambling. Raisin bagel. Raisin cinnamon bagel. Before this, I just had New York bagel. So then, this professional, she has been a professional day trader for a long time, and she uses the moving averages. She's the expert in moving averages. I forget what her name is. And she says this. She says, what you want to do is create multiple angles of view to support your thesis. the more things that aligns your thesis, the higher probability of your thesis becoming a reality. So the more and higher level of congregation or supporting thoughts pointing towards the thesis, the higher grade of a trade between A, B, C, and D. That's what it essentially boils down to. So even on a scalping strategy, there has to be at least a couple of things that need to occur. One of them is, have I identified a possible trend? Then, have I identified what candlestick patterns are showing a certain deviation so that I could write it to move in the direction where it allows me to get in, some sort of a entry signal, so that I know that when the trend is there, then I know that what structure is there is not a reversion situation or a drawdown situation. And so it has occurred to me that what I need to do now, after having lost my 100K FTMO challenge, the challenge itself, I was like 3 weeks. I had 3 weeks left, and I was like 98,000 because I drew down and I made it up to 98,000, and then I just imploded 2 days in a row, Monday and Tuesday, which is today. So it occurred to me, and what I need to do is, I'm an old man, and I really need to vacate the restaurant so that I give young people the opportunity to earn a wage as well. Okay? I feel like these days that I'm just out of the goodness of their heart that I'm still employed there, which I don't like. I wish that I could do more, but right now it's I wish I could do more, but things are just not clicking very well. Anyway, so what I need to do is become the house. Becoming the house means that I have to pre-plan my strategy. I have to align. So if I'm trading a intraday, then I need to have some sort of a back supporting ideas to play that route. So if I'm doing a dip and rip, and I'm expecting the stock to rip after a certain dip, then I can have a certain supporting idea that helps me to connect the dots to make it a higher grade in my trade. And so I need to figure that out. And I have to figure that out. And the owner of this office, Evolution, has been so kind in allowing me to work here. I'm probably one of the, here's what I do. I mean, I make ramen and I have this Marie Callender pot pie. It takes 6 minutes to sit in the microwave. And the microwave, what it will do is it'll start beeping when it's done. But it takes 6 minutes, so I'm here, and by the time I get there, it probably beeped for a minute. So I probably annoyed several people who are in the office there. Okay. When I first got here, I was wearing the same shoes that I was wearing at the restaurant. And when working at a restaurant, the shoes become like oily, and the and the traction becomes like cased in oil and grease. And what I was doing is I was making footprints, steps all over the carpet. They were kind enough to, like, they knew who it was. It was me, because I would be sitting here and they would lead the tracks all the way to me, right? And I have become such a burden to the restaurant and to this place. And I can say that I'm an innocent man, and they'll say, "Hey, why did you sign that?" My reasoning is, well, the prosecution threatened my life with 50 years of prison time. That's why I signed it. And I tell them, I think everybody would do the same thing, right? So what I need to do is, before I become extremely burdensome to this place and to the restaurant, thankfully, I think the room that I'm living in, I just go there to sleep, take a shower, get out. I don't even eat there. I just sleep. And because I sleep on my, anyway, on the side, I don't snore either. Anyway, so the glass ceiling is transitioning from the gambling world to actually becoming the house, to becoming a professional. That is the difference between a novice day trader and a professional day trader. Professional day trader has full control over, with a statistical back numbering. That's why professional poker players are exactly the same way. Their variables are specifically assigned a statistical number. That's what's going on. And so what I've come to realize now is that when I make a trade, unless I have a statistical back supporting information, then I'm essentially just gambling. This is probably the most important transitional thinking that needs to occur prior to anybody transitioning, moving through and passing through the glass ceiling, where one side is gambling, the other side is professional. And professionals know that when a C trade, when a B type of a trade is there, that there's a statistical probability that is high, not too high. If there's a 70% or 80% statistical probability, which is maybe an A setup, right? Then that has a higher possibility of occurring. And so I have to identify what the situation is and say, this is what the situation is, and this is why I'm making this trade, and this is why I put the stop loss on this, and this is why I expect to have this much in gain. That, my friend, is a professional way of thinking. That is moving through, sublimating into being a professional day trader. That's why there's this Mike Bellafiore of SMB Capital said this. He said, I was mentoring this professional day trader, and the professional day trader would describe in extreme detail of what type of trade it is, and what supporting thesis there is, what ideas there are, how much risk the person is going to take, in an excruciating detail, written A single trade written on a 3-page Excel spreadsheet describing the details of how the trade will unfold. That is the level of detail that needs to occur for a professional to take on the trade, to remove oneself from being a gambler, to passing through to the other side of the glass ceiling. It says that vice presidents are on the other side of the executive vice presidents are on the other side of the glass ceiling. Right? Maybe that is something, maybe that is what the case is. So, so now, after having lost the 100K FTMO challenge, okay, only after like a week, okay, all right, even though there was like 4 weeks that I could have done, but only after a week. Let's put it this way. I am so thankful. Despite the fact that on a moment-by-moment basis, I lapse and forget how grateful I am to be employed at Westside Drive-In, because it pays for everything. When I parked my car, and then as I waited for my time to start my shift, as I waited until I started my shift, and then as I walked out, there were like 3 cars lined up in the drive-thru. And I said to myself, thank you for eating at Westside Drive-In. You spending money at Westside Drive-In is giving a poor guy like myself, who has been wrongfully convicted of a felony and is unable to obtain employment anywhere in America. Okay? Therefore, I have to work there despite the fact that I am essentially an anti-social. When people talk about like small talk, I know they're talking about small talk, but my God, please don't waste my time. Anyway, so that is it. Transitioning, I think the main point might be the main point may be missed because the video is very long. The main point is that transitioning from a gambler to a real professional requires the usage of multiple angle and perspective to support the thesis that will be used to make the trade. For example, I'm now very close to my 50K FTMO challenge because I passed the halfway point today. And it is most likely within the next few days that I will cross and pass the 50K FTMO challenge. Okay. I forgot what I was going to say. See, I'm an old man. That's why it's imperative that I need to get this. Oh, for example, Tesla released its earnings and it just crashed. Then it started to pick up and pick up, pick up. And so what I've noticed is that when a stock does that, it has reached a solid bottom. Solid bottom. It's like Jesus Christ saying that when you're with me, you're building your house on solid ground, not shifting sands. Right? Right? Do you remember that? It says even the Bible describes about day trading. Okay? So when a stock has reached a certain level where it has essentially it's like tossing a flat rock across a river or a lake, calm lake. It won't just sink in. If thrown at a certain specific speed at a certain trajectory, it'll bounce, 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 bounce because it has reached something called a solid, rock solid support. It just cannot go down any more than that because there are enormous amount of people who are buying at that level. And so that is a single point perspective of buying the dip in that situation, because I know that it has reached a certain level where if I buy the dip, it's going to bounce up because I know that. But if I buy something on a dip on a stock that's on a sandy soil, it'll keep sinking, sinking, sinking like it did when I used my 100K to buy Amazon and Apple. It essentially, I bought it and just like, I'm thinking, okay, I'm still good. I made some money there, and boom, it just dropped. It just sunk. So essentially, the perspective of this is I need to elaborate on this. This is like, for me anyway, it's an earth-shattering discovery for me, because it's for me, because what I have been doing so far at this even today is gambling, because there's no statistical number that's assigned to the trade that I was making. Okay, I was like, I'll do this, and then because there's no foundation in supporting my thesis, that is called gambling. But if I assign a statistical number to it and I selectively choose how much I bet, and how much I bet on a different statistical value, then that is control. That is the house. So this is something that has eluded me. And I was thinking to myself as I was washing dishes today, okay, there's the restaurant has high school students who work there, and so they have to go home early, right? So the restaurant closed. So I was there, the last person washing dishes, and I had to close. Okay, and as I was washing dishes, I'm thinking to myself, my God, you got to make this work. You have to make this work. If you don't make this work, you're going to be an older man washing dishes out of the generosity of the owner, because the owner knows that I'm an old man and I can't be working harder and harder than everybody else. I mean, I'm impressed with some of the ladies who work there. I mean, They work circles around me. So, so I'm thinking to myself as I was like washing dishes, and my hands are all bloated, pruny. So I'm thinking to myself, I gotta make this work. My God, I even bought a watch. It's called Timex. It's time. So there is this instinctual urge to trade. It's the emotional trigger of something that's involved with monetary transaction, of growth and decline, that excites the inner being. And so that tastes like morphine drip. I have never had morphine. But apparently when medics in wars they give to this person, it's a painkiller. So it must be some sort of a um, it must be some sort of uh, uh, distraction. It must be some sort of a distraction from the focal point of that pain, right? And so when a series of wins occur because the market is moving this way, right? And and for days I'm making money, right? For days I'm making money. When that happens, I can just pick any stock and make money. So that hides the fact that I don't know what I'm doing. And then as soon as the market turns, then on the first or second day, the whole account is erased. Then the reality sets in. That is a true representation of vast majority of individuals who are trading, and that's why, right? And this 100K account was a clear proof of the inefficiency that the the lack the lack of of understanding how to day trade. So, where do I go from here? Where do I go from here? Where? Where do I go from here? I have to admit that as long as the restaurant is kind enough to keep me employed, despite the fact that I'm an antisocial, I just like to work. Somebody wants to start a small conversation, come on, don't waste my time. Please. Then, as long as this office evolution allows me to sit here and keep studying, I will do that. And as long as my probation officer is clearly off my back, because I told a coworker of mine who she is like only has 1.5 more years on her um, it's not probation, it's parole, I think. Anyway, so she's gonna be done. I'm like 1.5 years in. She's getting out. So as I told her that, what did I say? Well, I didn't say much. I guess it doesn't really matter. So as long as as long as uh, as long as see, I told her this. I am a straight arrow. Okay. And the reason I said I'm a straight arrow is because when I visited my probation officer, I told the probation officer straight out, look, I'm just here to say yes and no and get the heck out of here. Because what else is there to talk about, okay? If you're telling me that you want to help me when I know that anyway, okay? I know which team you're on and I know which team I'm on. And even though I was innocent, I'm in this situation sitting in front, okay? And he pointed it out to me. Hey, you're sitting over there, aren't you? Didn't you sign this? Anyway, and I told him, look, this guy who's a prosecutor uh, threatened my life with 50 years of prison time for stealing my mother and father's estate, part of their estate. My parents. I didn't talk about my parents, but I told them, look, um, prosecution did that. And so I think any reasonable human being would sign that. Okay? And he didn't say anything. I don't remember him saying anything after that. I'll bet if he was in the same situation, he would immediately sign it. So, and of course there was COVID going on, and look at me. I look like a COVID. And if I were to be in trial here in Boise, Idaho, huh? Anyway, so I guess I just distracted. That has been a distressing part of my day for the past couple of days. But I must trudge along. And this is a record of me transitioning into a professional day trader. And transitioning into a professional day trader, I must be able to vacate those thoughts and immediately process any emotional things that are occurring in me so that I can focus on what I need to do and return to what I was doing, which is to help myself move through that gambling stage to a professional day trader and being the house, building my house on solid rock, solid ground, so that when I make a trade and I have a conversation with somebody like Mike Bellafury, and I told him, look, I made this trade because I'm making this trade based on a principle, this setup called dip and rip. Why is it a dip and rip? The dip and rip is most effective when the stock is on a long term, on a daily basis in an uptrend. And it is consistently supporting the thesis that the stock is moving in an upward trajectory. And anytime there is a dip, then it is a perfect opportunity to buy the dip. Simply buying the dip willy-nilly is not enough. There has to be a supporting conclusion, supporting other supporting ideas that allows me to select that stock. And the other point is on a sector basis. On a sector basis, when I look at this stock, it has a slight tendency to be behaving in a more positive manner than the other stocks, despite the fact that the other stocks are moving in correlation or in step with the broader or the sector representation, which is essentially a NASDAQ, such as the QQQ or the composite. And when that is correlated with several other stocks, and the several other stocks are essentially moving right along with it without deviating from each other on a group wise and statistically aligned with QQQ or the comp, and the stock that I'm looking at is essentially whenever it moves, it tends to have a greater impact on one side or the other, showing me that it has a greater propensity to move in a accentuated manner. In this case, if I'm supporting my thesis based on a dip and rip when the trend is moving up, and if the slight difference between the overall NASDAQ composite, the index, and it is a little bit higher, it is supporting my thesis into purchasing the dip and rip. So there's at least several things that are supporting my idea. Now, when I have these things, of course, a few hours later, the buyer that's holding up the stock or moving in more aggressively than other stocks in the same the indices, the person could stop. However, there is a 80-20 thesis that a trend will continue 80% of the time and then deviate at 20% of the time. That kind of point by point analysis that supports a clustering and surrounding this thesis with solid, very strong supporting ideas creates a scenario where grading is possible. And when I achieve a grading of my ideas to that particular thesis and reaches a point where it's A or A plus, I mean, I could literally just go for it, right? Go for it. Right? Just go for it. And when I go for it, it just means that there is the highly likely that the trade that I'm making is essentially like being the house, and essentially just me talking about it, just me. Here's where the glass ceiling was. Just me, just essentially point by point, I'm lowering the glass ceiling, whereupon this idea is transformed into a professional thesis. Yeah.